Have you ever been home alone during a storm, feeling both completely free and eerily exposed? What starts off as a dream night of freedom can spiral into something unforgettable and terrifying. Welcome to my viewers. Tonight's story is one from my teenage years, and I promise it's one I'll never forget. I was at that perfect age where being left home alone felt like winning the lottery. I was 13, and my parents had just started trusting me to stay home by myself overnight. The only rules: don't leave the house and don't let anyone in. I was more than fine with that. The thrill of blasting my music or video games without my dad yelling to turn it down was exhilarating, and to top it all off, it was raining, eventually building into a full-blown thunderstorm. I even sat out on the covered porch for a while, just watching. I've always found thunderstorms oddly comforting. Something about them makes being indoors feel cozy and safe. Eventually I moved my Xbox from my room down to the den to play on the massive flat-screen TV my dad had, complete with a Bose sound system. I only got to use it when I was home alone, and this felt like the ultimate setup. The den sat a half flight of stairs down from the living room, directly level with our backyard. The sliding door back there led straight outside. I say all this in past tense because I've moved out since, but my parents still live in that house. That night I was down there playing Call of Duty Black Ops, volume cranked, chatting with my friend Cody through this old crackly headset that barely worked. But to my 13-year-old self, life was perfect. Until I heard the doorbell. It was after 9 p.m. and I paused the game, telling Cody someone was at the front door. He said I should go check. For a moment I thought maybe my parents came home early, but they had keys. They wouldn't ring the bell. I tucked my character in a safe corner of the map and climbed the stairs, calling out, "Who's there?" I didn't know it then, but that was my first mistake. A man's voice responded from the other side saying, "I need to use a phone." Something about his tone gave me a bad feeling. I didn't answer. I just backed away and returned to the den, heart thumping. But the damage was done. He now knew someone was inside. I told Cody what happened, and he replied, "Yo, what the bard?" He agreed, "Do not open the door." A few seconds later, the doorbell rang again. I froze. Cody told me to just ignore it. After a while, it seemed like whoever it was had moved on. The tension eased, and I melted back into the game, hoping that was the end of it. It wasn't. Just as I was most relaxed, I heard a sound to my right. I turned and saw the back door sliding shut. A man, tall, soaking wet, was stepping inside. It wasn't my dad. It was a stranger. I dropped my controller and bolted for the office, yanking the headset cord free as I ran. I made it in and slammed the door behind me. I locked it just in time. The knob immediately started rattling violently. The office had two doors. One led back to the den, the other into the garage. I stood frozen, hoping the man would leave, heart pounding in my ears. Then I heard him speak. "Little boy, I just need to use your phone." I was stranded in the rain. His tone shifted rapidly. Knocks became bangs. Calm became rage. "Open the door, you little," he screamed, now slamming into it like he was trying to break it down. I had no choice. I hit the button for the garage door, praying he couldn't hear it. It opened slowly, painfully loud. As soon as there was enough room, I ducked under and sprinted through the rain to my neighbor Julian's house. I knew him well. I used to play with his dog Copper all the time. I heard Copper barking as I rang the bell, terrified the man would chase me down the street. Julian opened the door, and I ran straight into his arms, breathless, begging for help. His wife came out from the kitchen, looking confused until I explained everything. Their faces changed immediately. Julian called the police and coordinated with them while comforting me. It felt like forever before the flashing lights lit up the street. Julian and I walked out to meet the officers, and I told them everything. When they asked which door was unlocked, I realized it must have been the back through the garage. A few officers slipped around the side and into the house through there. After what felt like another eternity, they emerged with a man in cuffs. He never saw me. The cops made sure of that. They asked if I recognized him. I didn't. I'd never seen him before in my life, but he was shouting that this was his house, that I was his son. His words were slurred, his behavior erratic. He was either drunk, high, or just completely unhinged. They arrested him, and my parents were called. They pressed charges. His name was John McCarty. I believe he was charged with criminal trespass. I remember thinking, even with him behind bars, that he now knew where I lived. That idea haunted me. Thankfully, it turned out to be random, no connection to us, and when he was released, he never returned. I used to think that stories like the ones you hear on YouTube, the true horror ones, the creepypastas, the "it happened to me" tales, were just entertainment, something spooky to fall asleep to. I mean, I'm just an average person with a boring, predictable life, so why would anything truly horrific ever happen to me? But something did. And now those stories hit me in a way they never used to. It happened just a few months ago, around 4 a.m., though I can't say for certain because I wasn't exactly watching the clock. Everyone else in my house was asleep. My mother and both of my grandparents. For the past 2 months, we'd been hit with violent thunderstorms almost weekly. I've always enjoyed them, especially at night. I'd sit by my window, watching the lightning flash across the sky like nature's own horror movie. But the wind always creeped me out. Maybe it was the way it could be soft one moment and howling the next, like something unseen was screaming just outside. That night's storm was one of the worst we'd had all season. It sounded like the sky was throwing gravel at my window, but I was cozied up in bed, browsing Reddit like usual, half listening to the storm, until suddenly the power cut out. No flicker, no warning, just black, creepy, but not unheard of. Luckily, I had my phone and data, so I kept scrolling for a bit longer. Eventually I started feeling drowsy, so I set my phone on my side table and rolled over to sleep. The next thing I remember was the silence. The rain had stopped. I assumed I'd dozed off for a bit, but my mouth was dry, so dry it actually woke me up. I tried to ignore it, willing myself back to sleep, but it wasn't happening. So I grabbed my phone and turned on the flashlight to head to the kitchen for some water. The moment I opened my bedroom door, a blast of cold air hit me. It was freezing in the living room, unnaturally cold, like the kind of cold you'd expect outside in late autumn, not in the middle of July. I threw on a hoodie from a nearby chair and walked through the living room. The wind outside was picking up again. Every step toward the kitchen felt like I was walking deeper into something that wasn't quite right. Then, I noticed it. The sliding patio door was open. Not cracked, not ajar, open. I stopped in my tracks. Now, I knew my grandfather sometimes went out for air when he couldn't sleep, but the storm had started hours ago. No one would have gone out in that mess. Still, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he'd opened it earlier and forgot to close it. I walked over, locked it shut, and hurried back to my room, heart beating just a little faster. Back in bed, I kept the flashlight on this time, like a nightlight. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was. I even dragged my desk chair over and wedged it under my doorknob, just in case. I opened my closet too. Another irrational paranoia check. All clear. Finally I lay back down, but my heart wouldn't settle. Then came the moment I'll never forget, the one that changed how I see everything. A faint bump, not from outside, from under my bed, followed by the slightest creak of bed springs. My entire body went stiff. I hadn't checked under the bed. I slowly leaned over the edge and with my flashlight trembling in my grip, I looked, and there she was, an emaciated woman, her skin clinging to her bones, hair hanging in greasy clumps, bloodshot eyes locked onto mine, her mouth curled into a horrifying grin, revealing yellow, rotting teeth. She just smiled, then let out a cackle so shrill, so unnatural, it made my blood run cold. It was the kind of laugh you hear in nightmares, except this was real. She was real. I launched myself off the bed, shoved the chair aside, and bolted down the hall to my grandparents' room, screaming for my grandfather. He was out in seconds, with a gun I never even knew he had. We all ran back to my room, and just as we rounded the corner, we saw something pale slip out the window and vanish into the darkness. My grandfather fired a warning shot into the night, but there was no sign of her. She was gone. We didn't call the police. What were we going to tell them? That a barefoot ghost of a woman crawled into our house during a blackout and hid under my bed. We had no cameras, no evidence, no name. We still don't know who she was or what she wanted. All I know is that now every bump in the night feels personal. Every time the wind howls, I wonder if someone's out there watching. We're getting new locks installed on every door and window next week. So please, if you take anything from my story, know that it can happen to you too. No matter how safe you think you are, no matter how normal your life seems, darkness has a way of finding cracks in your world. Thanks for watching. If this story gave you chills, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts in the comments. And remember, check under your bed. There's something deeply unsettling about hearing a human voice during a storm, especially when you're miles from the nearest neighbor. Welcome to my viewers. Tonight's story is a real one. It's about a weekend getaway gone horribly wrong, and the night we realized we were not alone in the woods. It was August. My girlfriend Cass and I had gone upstate for a quick weekend retreat at my family's rustic mobile home. We jokingly call it luxury camping. It's small, about 600 square feet, but it has running water, electricity, and a bathroom, one bedroom, a pull-out couch in the living room, and a tiny kitchen that barely fits 2 people. It's in the middle of nowhere, but there's a lot to do: archery, dirt biking, shooting, off-roading. We had a whole itinerary mapped out. Friday we unpacked, ate out, stocked up on groceries, and watched a movie. Saturday was when things got strange. The day started off fun. We dirt biked until storm clouds rolled in fast and heavy. You could feel it coming. We rushed to stash everything into the outbuilding and then threw on a DVD as we cooked dinner. Just as we sat down to eat, the sky cracked open with thunder and rain that pounded the roof like drums. Cass and I took our food to the deck under the canopy just to soak in the wild beauty of the storm. Lightning slashed across the sky, thunder answering almost immediately. But then we heard something out in the woods, a voice. It wasn't yelling for help. It wasn't crying or panicked. It was just loud, distant, but deliberate, almost rhythmic, like it was repeating something, though we couldn't make out the words. My stomach twisted. We were in the middle of nowhere. Who the hell else was out here? I stepped to the edge of the deck, rain blowing under the canopy and soaking my shirt. The woods were dark, but flashes of lighting gave me brief glimpses, and in one of those flashes, I saw person just standing at the tree line. I told Cass. She thought I was messing with her, told me to knock it off. I hesitated, wanted to shout, ask if they needed help, but something in my gut screamed no. I told Cass it was probably a hiker, and we went inside, but curiosity got the better of me. I stepped back out. That figure, now they were closer, 20 feet from the deck, just standing, not moving, not waving, not asking for help, just there. I went back inside and locked the door. I must have looked pale because Cass immediately asked what was wrong. I tried to keep her calm, said maybe someone needed shelter. I told her to go to the bedroom while I kept an eye on things. We sat there, hearts pounding, for 5 agonizing minutes. Then we heard heavy, wet footsteps on the deck. Over the storm, instead of knocking, we heard slow shuffling at the door, like someone trying to open it. That was when I started to feel real fear. Cass called to me from the bedroom. The shuffling stopped, and I crept to the window. I killed the lamp, held my breath, and yanked the curtain. In a flash of lighting, I saw him, a man, running away from the window, disappearing into the dark. I thought maybe it was over, but I checked the kitchen window next, and my heart nearly stopped. There was a face pressed up against the glass, watching. I shouted, "Yo, go away," as loud and aggressive as I could. But they didn't move, didn't flinch. No reception, no Wi-Fi, nothing. Then I remembered the rifle under the bed. I ran back to the bedroom. Cass was on the bed, biting her nails. I pulled the rifle from under the bed, loaded the magazine. No more sugarcoating. She knew this was serious. Then bang, a strike against the bedroom window, followed by another bang from the kitchen. 2 locations, 2 people. I told Cass to stay put. I crept toward the front door and unlocked it slowly. Rifle raised. I flung the door open, heart racing. No one. I stepped outside, completely exposed. The rain drenched me, but adrenaline numbed everything. I checked the deck, the steps, and there he was, standing at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at me. Same guy, white clothes, trying to look eerie. He didn't know I had a gun. I fired into the air. The guy shouted, "Oh," expletive, and bolted into the trees. I heard a second voice yelling deeper in the woods. There were at least 2 of them, maybe more. They weren't lost. They weren't hikers. They were trying to scare us, or worse. And I don't play those games. We spent the rest of the night wide awake, rifle nearby, heart thumping with every branch that moved out. The next morning, the storm was gone. The woods were quiet. No signs of anything. We packed up and got out fast. I took every valuable thing with me. In all the years my family's owned that place, nothing like that ever happened. But after that night, I don't go back, unless I'm with family. And never, ever alone. Thanks for watching, everyone. If this story gave you chills, be sure to hit that like button. Drop a comment with what you think really happened out there. And don't forget to subscribe for more creepy true stories just like this. Stay safe and keep your doors locked.